Thank you for having me, everyone. It's good to be here. I just wanted to make a quick additional comments on the noises that we hear outside when we meditate. I've noticed that it's not the noise that's so distracting, it's my judgment about the noise. When birds chirp, I never go, "Won't those birds shut up?" Because we all think of that as a beautiful thing. Oh, the birds are chirping. So it's our distinction when we say those people arguing is a bad sound and the birds chirping is a good sound. That's what makes it difficult to stay focused. And so the opportunity to turn off our judgments for a time and just hear the world as it truly is without us getting in the way. Anyway, that's not my talk today, but I thought I'd just comment on that. So the talk today is about the 5 remembrances. This is a Buddhist teaching. Look at my notes here. Okay, so the 5 remembrances are meant to be a daily reflection, daily reminder. There's a lot of teachings in the Dharma, a lot of suttas that are about, they're pieces of wisdom that tell us things about the world. But what happens often is that, we have these pieces of wisdom, we know them, intellectually we know them. We might have an inspirational poster on our wall that has the comment or the teaching. But then life happens, we get carried away, we do something unwise that's really opposite of that poster on our wall, and then later we have to come back and we open up something to read or just remind ourselves, oh yeah, okay, that's the wisdom. And then we start to, rethink how we behaved or what we thought or how we felt. And so the purpose of a daily remembrance or reflection is to do more than just know something intellectually. It's to allow the wisdom to really be internalized so that over time it has a formative, shaping effect on who we are. Who we are as persons is an impermanent thing. It's ever changing. And so the goal of our practice in general is that we are transformed through the practice, and that piece of wisdom starts to shape us such that we are more in tune with the understanding of that teaching, so that or more importantly, that we're more in tune with reality, which is another meaning of the word Dharma. And so then you start to notice little glimpses as this happens, where life happens, something that would normally upset us or make us behave unwisely, and then we experience a moment where our natural response, without trying, was in accordance with the wisdom. And then we look back on that and go, wow, normally I would have done something really, differently in that situation. And now I've noticed that I don't have to remind myself after the fact. My normal way of interacting with the world and being in the world, my perspectives are starting to shift such that just my natural reactions are starting to align with the truth of reality. And so that's the purpose of a daily reflection, just to take that thing that we think we know intellectually and get it to where we really know it, where it starts to really, and that begins by keeping it in mind mindfully throughout the day. But then eventually it's less effort because it just becomes who we are. Um, just to quote the sutta, there are 5 facts that one should reflect on often, whether one is a woman or a man or a householder or one gone forth or anyone else. These are not abstract philosophical things to debate, but they're just practical realism, facing life as it is. This comes from early Buddhism and is used across all the different schools and traditions. It's found in an early collection of Buddhist teachings, considered part of the oldest layer of Buddhist texts, accepted by Theravada, Mahayana, Zen, all the schools. So, a little historical context to this. Probably most of us know the general story of the Buddha and how was raised in a very sheltered, pleasant life inside of the palace, sheltered from the unpleasant things of life, making him quite naive at the time. And then one time, going outside the temple for the first time, to quote, "When I saw an old person, a sick person, and a dead person, I was struck, humiliated, and repelled. And the pride of youth, health, and life entirely left me." And so these first 3 realizations of the Buddha, of who would become the Buddha, old age, sickness, a corpse, are the first 3 of the 5 remembrances. And so the first of the remembrances is I will grow old. And again, this is something that you might think, well, no kidding, everybody knows that. It's just simple truth. But knowing and knowing, 2 different things, right? So we often forget things. And it's not forget in the sense of, if you walk up to the person, you remember you're going to grow old, right? Yeah, of course, But it's more like forget in the sense of you're not really taking it for granted. You're not really acting as though that's the case. And when you do forget those things, then reality will have a way of reminding you, and that reminder will be a lot more harsh than when we get ahead of the game and really come to know the things without having to learn them the hard way. This morning, in fact, I was reminded of my age when I made the mistake of lifting my knee to put my pants on. And I guess that was the wrong thing to do, because something happened to my knee and a crick happened, and something that normally I would have been able to say I was playing soccer and this happened. Well, no, I was just putting my pants on. So those little things will start to happen. You'll start to notice your changes, the little aches and pains. And one thing I notice is that now more and more when you hear about some famous person passing away, they tend to be closer to my age more often. And the people that you know in your life, of course, start to pass away more frequently. And it becomes undeniable eventually. And so if we bring ourselves into alignment with that truth, and that the aging is unavoidable. Yes, there are things we can do. We can, exercise and treat ourselves right, and make our experience more physically pleasant. On average, probably by doing the right things, and those are wise things to do. But we can't let we can't let ourselves think that that's going to be a defeating age or we're getting away from it because it's going to happen anyway. Body changes despite our wishes. And we always kind of, in the back of our minds, even though you wouldn't admit it, you kind of start thinking, this won't happen to me. I'm the main character. So we start to internalize that through this daily remembrance. Yes, it's going to happen. I plan for it. Don't be surprised by it. Don't be upset by it. It's part of nature. It's a necessary part of nature, because without that continuous, ever-changing flow of matter and energy in the universe, that always changing nature of things, without that, everything that happened that brought you into existence wouldn't be possible. So in and out, it's all part of the same thing. You breathe in, you breathe out. You come into existence, you go out of existence. You have youth, you have age. And coming to appreciate it in that larger sense, having more of a God's eye view on things, rather than just being caught up in kind of that biological instinctive drive to want to continue forever, the survival instinct. That's a small little cage to live in. So bring our vision out to that larger thing. We start to associate with the beauty and the wonder of that whole system, and that we're part of it. Can you remind me when we're supposed to be totally wrapped up, including Q&A?
Anywhere from 11:30 to 11:45.
Okay.
It doesn't really matter for you.
Okay, thank you.
You already between us and lunch. Yeah.
Yeah, eventually when I start hearing growling stomachs, I'll wrap it up. The second remembrance is I will get sick. And sick being a general term, which could mean anything from injury to illness to all kinds of different conditions that we will accumulate over time. Health is temporary and fragile. Yes, there are things we can do to make it better and hopefully, make our stay as comfortable as possible for as long as possible. But despite those things, anything could happen. A piano could fall on your head, So we got to be ready for that as well. Even the careful and the disciplined get ill. This is something that really hit us over the head when the COVID epidemic happened. It was one of those moments, kind of like 9/11. I know that's going to become a historical event now, but when that happened and those towers fell, it was a surreal feeling that the world was not as permanent as you thought it was. And the same thing happened with the COVID epidemic. It's like, normally I feel like if something's happening, if there's a hurricane or something, I can just drive inland further to get away from it. I can do things. I can go somewhere. I can go stay at a hotel. But when COVID happened, there was nowhere to go unless you had a spaceship. It was everywhere, and it felt like you were in a movie or something. It felt surreal because your foundations were gone. Everything you thought about the world or what would happen in your life and your plans. And those moments of shock, if someone is in an accident and say they lose their legs or something, there's probably a similar feeling for a person in that situation. Or they lose a loved one and they didn't expect, it was some random thing that happened. Of course, it's not random, but felt random. So part of the effort to inculcate this into our state of being is so that when those moments happen, we're more in tune with things. We're in a wiser state of mind, more accepting, um, more ready for it. And then we can even be of more use to people because we can be there to be support for others. So there's also a compassionate aspect to preparing ourselves. And then the third remembrance is I will die. That's, of course, part of the Buddhist teaching of impermanence. Death is certain. None of us are getting out of this alive. Timing is not. This was his most shocking realization upon leaving the palace. And for a young person, it feels like it's 100 years away. It feels like very abstract a lot of times. And then, of course, as you start to realize the age thing and everything, and you start to see the world around you and the impermanence, it starts to become more and more clear. And how we react to that, can greatly affect the quality of our lives. I kind of think of it like, when you're born, you're thrown out of an airplane, and at first, all you see is clouds, and you're floating around. Everyone around you is floating around. Wow, this is interesting, But eventually, the clouds start to part, and you start to see something, and the ground looks so far away, and it's just hardly moving at all. It's just still. But then the closer it gets, the faster it starts moving. And then eventually it becomes impossible to deny that it's coming. So we're here for a time, and eventually we will die. It's not meant to be morbid, but clarifying. Meant to heighten our appreciation of the present moment, because the present is all we have and it will not come again. We're always wanting to jump over things to get to some imagined important point in our timeline. And often the most important things happen in between. Even just waiting in line somewhere. What do? We fill this time with a distraction so that it'll pass quickly. Well, you keep doing that, it adds up. Pass quickly, pass quickly, pass quickly, and then boom, you're at the end. So appreciating the present moment is really what that lesson is about. It's very similar to a ancient Greek concept, memento mori, remembering that I will die. You've seen a lot of classical paintings in the medieval to Renaissance period. They started to revive a lot of the ancient Greek concepts, and so a lot of classical paintings would be like a desk, and there's a skull on the desk. Why are these skulls and everything? The skull was the reminder, the memento mori, that I'm mortal, and I must remember that. Number 4 is everything I love will change or be lost. It applies to people, roles, identities, possessions. Loss includes separation, not just death. So you might not always have the job you have, might not always have the house you have. These things you have for a short time. Again, to reference the ancient Greek philosophers, they Socrates used the example of a cup. When you have a breakable cup, a fine dish or something, you might really like that cup. It's your favorite cup, but it's an impermanent item. So one day when it slips and shatters, if you already are prepared and you had it for a certain amount of time, then it's not the end of the world when the cup shatters. Clinging is what really increases the suffering, the clinging to things, wanting things to always be the same and not change. I like to think of it like if you can get to the point where you're lying in a river, letting the water flow by without trying to grab on to every piece of it, experiencing the joy of the seasons, not just trying to always cling on to one season. And then that's what also highlights a difference in love, the way we love things. We can love something or someone without the clinging, without the attachment, because really that clinging attachment is about us, and love should be about the other person or the other thing or whatever it is you're loving or dedicating yourself to. And number 5, I am responsible for my actions. Actions shape character and future experience. So the way I think of it is if you have a certain character that makes certain kinds of actions easier for you or more difficult for you. If someone had a very selfless, generous character, it would be easy for them to make sacrifices for other people and difficult for them to hurt other people. If they had a very selfish character, then it would be easy for them to do selfish things and very difficult for them to do selfless things. And there's thousands of different characteristics that go into making up a personality or a person, and these are all shifting all the time, and they're shifting according to our experiences. And one of those experiences is our actual doing of the thing. So the more selfish things we do, the easier it becomes to be selfish. The more selfless things we do, the easier it becomes to be selfless. So the amount of discipline required starts to shorten or lessen, I should say. And that's the idea. Like, we can always do all of these things. It's just, how difficult is it? How practiced is it? The more we explode with anger, the more we practice being angry, and the better we get at it. So our actions shape our character and our future experience. No one else can live or die for you. Meaning and dignity come from conduct. This is the ethical anchor of the list. To quote the sutta, I am subject to aging. I am not exempt from aging. I am subject to illness. I am not exempt from illness. I am subject to death. I am not exempt from death. Everything dear to me and everyone I love are subject to change and separation. I am the owner of my actions. My actions are my only true belongings. So, at first it might seem like a disconnected set of things, at least 4 and 5. But these all work together in a way. The first 3 remembrances, aging, illness, and death, are about the inescapable vulnerability of having a body. They're about this body. They're not moral failures or personal shortcomings. They're just conditions of being alive. The Buddha's insight here is that much of our anxiety comes from quietly assuming our bodies should be exempt from these things. These reflections correct that assumption. The 4th point moves on to the world's instability, from here to the external, from the internal to the external. The 4th remembrance shifts that focus If you were healthy forever, even if you were healthy forever, everything you rely on is still unstable. Relationships change, roles end, identities fall apart, circumstances shift. This isn't about emotional detachment so much as seeing clearly that permanence is something we project onto the world, not that the world offers it. And then this fifth point, the way it ties in with the rest, after stripping away those illusions of bodily control and external stability, the fifth remembrance answers the crucial question, what's left? What remains is how you act. You may not control outcomes, aging, or loss, but you do shape your character, your intentions, and the effects of your behavior on others. And this is where our agency is. So this whole thing is really about finding where is our agency and not imagining our agency lies in places it isn't. And so taken together, these can sound bleak, but they're not saying nothing matters. They're saying stop pretending you control what you don't control so that you can take full responsibility for what you do control. That's not resignation. It's realism, and it's paired with moral freedom. Acceptance without passivity. So, and that's a big thing people kind of confuse a lot. Being accepting of reality doesn't mean I'm not going to act when morality or virtue demand that I act. I'm going to do the things that I need to do the right thing in the world. But as I do that, I'm not under any illusion that I'm guaranteed an outcome. I'm doing it because that is the kind of being that I'm going to try to be. And that's what I have control over. What kind of being am I going to be? We get attached to the outcomes, and then you get this burnout. You're acting in the world, you're trying to do the right thing, you're working on good causes, or you're trying to help someone in your life, you're trying to do these things, and you're thinking, I'm making a deal with the world. I do this, and you give me that. That's the deal. And then you get real upset when you didn't get the payoff from the deal you thought you made. That's not what's going on here. What's going to happen is what's going to happen. The only question is, what kind of person are you? And so a loving person is loving because they want a loving person, not because that object of their love deserves it or or loves them back or anything. It's because that's the kind of being that they are. And when you have that right, you avoid one of the pitfalls that leads to that kind of burnout. Because anyone working on a cause, if they're in an organization or they're working on a charitable cause or they're helping someone in their family or whatever it is, they'll get disappointments. They'll get those moments where it feels like it's futile. Like, I fed all these people and they're still starving in the world. What's going on here? Why did I do that? So that's one of the practicalities of a reflection like this, is to keep our understanding of reality in tune with reality. So these reflections can help support gratitude, compassion, urgency, ethical clarity. Remembering changes how we live now. So it's not about, there's two different ways there's a lot of people who have internalized the fact of our mortality, and it has made them very cynical, bitter, or defeatists, or nihilistic. That's one way that you can internalize these things. But when you internalize these truths, alongside internalization of compassion, then now it takes on a different tone. Now it is about what does a compassionate being do in this kind of world, with this kind of time, at this moment. That's a very different thing than nihilism. And it also involves internalizing the beauty and wonder and grandeur of this whole thing. These things that seem like horrors are really, like for me, it helps to think about the reality of how these instincts came about. There's a bunch of biological stuff replicating, and the stuff that didn't have this strong self-preservation instinct stopped replicating after a while. It just didn't work out. So all that's left is the replicating stuff that really wants to keep replicating. And so when you think about that, you start to realize that's not me. That's this biological body I'm in has these drives, but those drives aren't me. I'm a different kind of being that's kind of come into existence in these unspecialized neurons who have formed all these patterns. That's where the piece of software, or whatever you want to call it, wetware, that has come about from experiences, from my life experiences, from my awareness, my understanding, my perceptions, my thoughts and memories, and the things that my loved ones taught me. That's me. And that's why the Buddhist concept of no self is very important, because you realize that these things there's not really just one central me. I can choose what's me and what's not. And if I want to be a shark or a or a snake or whatever that has those instincts, I want to identify with that. I can identify with that, but then I live the life of a simple, impermanent animal. So if you want to talk about agency and choice, then there's no agency or choice in that primitive biological drive. It's just like a mechanism, like a thermostat or something, So I don't have to identify with that. Just 2 days ago, my cat that I've had for 20 years, it was very long for a cat to live 20 years. She passed away. She was very old, and she had a good life, and her suffering was very minimal. Everything happened quickly. It wasn't a long period of her, suffering or anything like that. Cats, I think, normally live like 16 to 18 years. She was 20 years old. And I originally saved her. The people say they rescued animal, but I literally rescued her. I found her in a puddle. She'd been abandoned by her mother during a rainstorm. And so we picked her up. She was just I thought she was a rat at first. I was trying to avoid her because I thought it was a rat. And then I was like, wait, that's not a rat. And so, I was trying to keep her. She was wet when I rescued her, and brought her home, and then we brought her into the vet the next day to make sure she got a checkup and everything. But she was wet and shivering, so I put her under my beard here, and I was trying to keep her warm until she dried off. And that must have imprinted on her, because her whole life she would always come to me, even when she was big, and put her head down under my beard like that, So she was a very special cat to me, and passed away 2 days ago. We kind of knew, like I said, she didn't suffer, but we kind of knew it was coming because she was becoming so frail, and just because knowing it had been 20 years. And so it's easier to handle during the day when you have all your little teachings conscious and everything. When you go to sleep at night and all the demands of the day are no longer distracting you, that's when you start thinking more about it. And it's purely a selfish feeling, I realize, but it comes out of love. It does. But I also feel like by acknowledging who she is, which is an impermanent being, I'm accepting all of her. When you love someone, you want to love everything about them. You accept the good and the bad, or what you call good or bad, and the ups and the downs and everything about them. And one of those things is their impermanence. So if you really love someone, you love them as they are, not a fantasy version of them that's immortal. So I had her for a certain amount of time. That time's over, and I'll always have that time. And, it was actually just fortunate, too, that I had started studying Buddhism and getting into Buddhism when my mother passed away in 2007. And it changed the experience from nothing but sadness to some sort of sacred event. Yes, of course, sadness, but with the acceptance and the awareness and the appreciation of the whole big impermanent system of the universe, it made it easier. It really, really helped me. And it was one of those things that was an early experience I had that made me realize the power of these teachings in affecting the quality of our lives. And so, yeah, these are important things, and they're worth remembering, and that's why they're called the 5 Remembrances. I guess we can go a few minutes and do some discussion. You guys have other points you'd like to share that help to illustrate some of these things for the rest of us? That would be great. Or if you have questions, I'm not a world expert or anything, but I'll tell you what I think about it anyway. Yeah.
So, thank you for your talk. The 5 Remembrances is actually one of my favorite practices. It's very dear to me. And the reason why, I actually had a similar experience. My grandmother passed in 2023, who was effectively a parent to me. And I had started practicing Buddhism. I'd practiced for some time, but I started becoming more active and a lot more engaged with reading. And coming across those leading up to her passing, like you said, it sort of made it a better experience. And so I share that, and I think that's very true. The other thing I wanted to say is the 4th remembrance about the world changing and everything. I always find that one. I find that one interesting because you're right. People delude themselves into thinking that they want the world to stay the same. Like, you really thought about that. You really don't. Like, I always. It's dumb, but like, I always start thinking about, like, you have in popular media, like, vampires, they get to live forever. Oh, that's cool. That sucks. That'd be horrible.
Everybody they know is just gone, right?
Right. Like, yeah. But also, you don't change. Like, so
it probably creates a feeling of isolation from everyone else in the world, I would think, if you were immortal.
Yeah. So
being a part of the world, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and when you say, like, the things that we think we want, I think that all of these wishes that we have that are opposite of reality, they came about because they're pushing against reality. So when you combine those wishes with reality, you get a species that can stay alive longer and so on and so forth. If you just allowed the wishes to win and reality would go away, they would create nonsense. And if you, other way around, if those wishes weren't there, there'd be no life forms. So it's like a yin and a yang, basically. And neither one works by themselves. Yes?
I think that's a great point. I feel like we often forget that life is about balance, and it's not like we talk about the middle way in Buddhism. It's not one extreme or the other. People chasing, like you said, people chasing happiness today, wait for happiness. And it's like you don't have to wait. You know, you can just experience life as it comes, or even um, I really resonated with what you said with about your cat. I had a cat very dear to me, and she when she passed away, it was really hard, but I didn't have that feeling of like understanding like my missing her is a selfish feeling, but you don't judge yourself for that selfish feeling. You're just like
Sure.
you just accept it as it is. So yeah, in life I feel like we're always chasing one extreme or the other without realizing that happiness or peace or contentment lies in the middle of all that.
Yeah, that's true. And you made a great point about not judging ourselves for whatever state we're at. That's the state that we're at right now because of all the prior events that took place that brought us to this point. We're all on a journey, we're all changing, and uh, you know, we're here because of reasons that we're here right now. Um, should I also, if anyone on the screen here would like to do the little hand thing, I think I would see a hand icon. If you right click on the bottom, I think you're free to do that too. Anyone else?
To continue on the theme of mortality, then, a more practical question for you. I see you're married. I don't know what your partner's religious inclinations are, but for me, how do you, the question really is, how do you impart to your loved one, yes, I love you, but I'm completely ready to let you go? Because I'm quite
Yeah. You don't want to seem too wise, do you? Right?
So, she's a Christian, and we've been together for years now, and I've been through 2 divorces, so my perspective on this has changed a little anyway. You know, nothing is forever, for sure. I've got 2 ex-wives to prove that. But yeah, to my partner, I love her. I am prepared to let her go because I know that she's going to get ill, she's going to die at some point. But that never really seems to be a winning argument with someone. So how do you approach that?
Well, first of all, right speech says that you say something if it's kind, helpful, and true. So being true isn't enough. It has to be both kind and helpful. The other thing is that, everything in our culture tells us lies about what love really is. Like all the songs that are supposedly romantic songs are about, I can't live without you. And if you died, I would be that's the end of the world. You know what I mean? It's like it's like they're talking about love as though it were attachment. And if you don't have that attachment, it's not real love, it's very, I don't mean it's confusing, but it confuses people. It's like it's a very mixed message on that, and it's almost like the object of the love wants the other person to have them, otherwise they don't feel loved. But I think a more mature love is where you say, look, if I die before you, you need to go on and be happy. I want you to be happy after I'm gone. Live a good life. That's how you're going to honor me. Go find another person and be happy with that person. That's real love, right? Don't say, if I'm dead, you better live the rest of your life miserable and alone. Anybody to tell you that doesn't really love you, right? So that's the inverse of that. It kind of proves your point. But yeah, being diplomatic about how we say those things is difficult. That we've got a person here. Am I going to hear if I?
They should talk, yeah.
Okay. I see a hand up there. It's muted, so I got to unmute. Oh no, it's not muted. Okay, go ahead.
Hey, Daniel. I think I have a very simple question, but it may be challenging. So life is filled with all these beautiful things, different forms of beauty, dogs, or cats, actually, you suggested. friends, nature, flowers, music. And it seems like the more we really appreciate these things, perhaps it's tougher to lose them all. So my question maybe is just if you have some practical tips, practical advice on how we can deal with the sadness that fairly naturally comes through the loss of all these wonderful, beautiful things. Can losing all those things can be pretty sad. So,
Yeah, that's a great point too. So, yeah, what if we achieve the goal of appreciating the beauty and wonder of the universe, and then we go, oh, well, if I'm going to be dead, I won't be able to appreciate the beauty and the wonder of the universe anymore. I think what it requires is a very, in Buddhism, one of the things I appreciate is that Buddhism gets very fine and precise in its delineation of things. And so there's a little bit of difference, subtle difference that you can pick out between appreciating the beauty and wonder of the universe and liking the feeling of appreciating the beauty and the wonder of the universe. So it's like one of them is selfless and the other one is really about the self, the ego. It's like I'm gonna get this beauty and wonder. People get hooked on this stuff actually. They jump from religion to religion to religion, seeking that high that you first get when you know, and so it becomes like a drug almost. And that's not really. They're kind of missing the point. They're not getting it somehow because what they're doing is they're just trying to feed the ego with good experiences, and it literally could have been anything. It could have been a drug in a literal drug. But when you connect with that beauty, awe, wonder of the universe in a more selfless way, where you're not trying to reach some goal for you, for your ego, or achieve some experience or feeling for you. You are feeling it, but it's really focused on identifying with where the ego, instead of being about this organism, starts to identify with this larger system. In ancient Greek thought, I like to compare and contrast between East and West a lot, but in ancient Greek thought, they have in Stoicism, they have a concept called oikiosis. It means appropriation, but what it's really talking about is this notion of the self, like we think of the self, the smallest kind of concept of the self, and then there's these concentric rings where it's like my loved ones, extended family, my community, my nation, all of humanity, all of life, all of the universe, and you go out like that. And so the concept is that you work on expanding the sense of the self further and further and further. And I was struck by how similar that is to loving kindness meditation in Buddhism, because you say, may I be happy, safe. You start with yourself, then you say, may my loved ones be happy and safe, and and then it goes out and it follows that same pattern. So we start with what we know. As babies, we know self, crying, get what you need, right? That's natural. You start with that, and then you start expanding it out. I also think that ideal motherly love that we think about, my mother said to me when I was a kid, no one's ever going to love you like your mother loves you. And I didn't appreciate what she meant at first, and I think I get it more now. It's that agape, right? Real love. It's not about me. It's about really extending the ego to include others. Means you're going to act on their behalf the way you act on your behalf, not because you're trying to extend your experience with that person, but just because you have now supplanted that survival instinct to include more than just one entity. So I think it's the same way with the universe. To answer your question, I think it's like I'm not identifying with myself when I do that, and that's different than seeking the high of awe and wonder as a product. Someone said in the
Very
chat
helpful.
here.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Someone said in the chat here. I don't know if I'm doing it right. Let's see. Get it all on the screen here. The idea, yeah, the idea of survival is living in a small cage blew my mind. I lived in survival mode for a long time. I always would say, I'm not living. In just like that perspective. Yeah. Anyone else? Yes.
You mentioned part about becoming an idol from the work of practice, how you feel that help you feel.
Yeah. I don't actually know if there's a specific practice meant to address nihilism directly. I'm looking into that, but for me, it's like nihilism likes to think that it is all about, or people who are being nihilistic like to think that they're all about reality and no other fluff added to it. This is just how it is. And what they're not seeing is that they have added something to it. They've taken reality and they've added these negative judgments about meaninglessness and valuelessness and purposelessness. They've added that. So I think one of the goals is, one of the first things is to see and be mindful and aware that that is a value judgment too. And it's been added on top of reality. Nihilists tell themselves they're just being real and everyone else is adding something. So we're going to add something no matter what we do, because reality is reality. The question is, are we going to add something that makes our lives better or worse? And that's what Buddhism is about, is relief of suffering. I see a hand there. Is it still up, or is it? Oh, yes.
I had a question. I think I know what nihilism is. Is it just the idea that, after we die, there's nothing and we're just meat people? Is that what nihilism is? I'm not really sure. Just clarification question.
What was it you asked about? Humanism?
Nihilism.
Oh, nihilism.
Yeah, nihilism.
Yeah, nihilism. Yeah, it's kind of a when someone feels like, when someone has come to realize that things are impermanent and that they're going to die and nothing you love is going to last forever. And a lot of times it happens after a series of negative encounters or experiences. And then so it's a defeatist kind of negative feeling that nothing has any meaning or purpose or value. We might as well not even try, because we're not going to be able to make anything last forever, and we're not going to, no matter what we try to do that's good, there's still going to be bad things happen in the world. So there's no purpose to even trying. That's what nihilism is. And
that's an interesting. That's an interesting perspective. I mean, it does have its merits, but I think, it's like with Buddhism, it's like the Buddha teaches us, don't focus on that. Although maybe it has its argument points, the point of Buddhism is like, there's suffering. It's clear, super obvious. Focus on that and how to be free from it, because the Buddha says, Nibbannang paramang sukhang. Nibbana is the highest happiness. So it's just, you can choose if you want to believe in nihilism, or if you want to maybe have a positive and maybe see there's Nibbana, there's something I can strive for. There is a happiness, there's suffering, and I can be free from that suffering. Maybe a much better perspective to have.
Yeah, agreed. I think part of it is also that understanding what happiness is. Like nihilism kind of makes sense if your idea of happiness is I must have wealth, I must have health, I must have permanence, I must have immortality. You know, if you think happiness is about these external circumstances, and if you have them, you're happy, and if you don't, you're not happy. That's a very tumultuous roller coaster to be on. Life, of course, is going to do that, and it also puts you in a very powerless position. It gives you no agency whatsoever. You're just along for the ride on the roller coaster. You're going to go where the roller coaster goes, and when it goes up, you go up, and when it goes down, you go down. That's not quite a very it's not as that great of an existence when you attach yourself to that. And so when you start to think about happiness, what is happiness that's not so transient? Then you start to find other sources of happiness. And then when you identify that kind of happiness, a true happiness, a deep happiness, meaningful happiness, that's not dependent on circumstance, then you see that there's another reality in the world the nihilists aren't seeing, which is that you can create happiness. And if you don't do these things, that happiness won't be there. And if you do these things, the happiness will be there. And once you see that that matters, then that brings meaning back into what you do. But it requires seeing the difference between a shallow happiness, not real happiness, more like pleasure, and a true, deep, meaningful happiness. I think we're pretty close to our time, right? Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you very much for having me back.
All right. Everyone will please stand. We'll do our 3 vows now. We'll do 3 vows to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Thank you all very much.